Okay, let's solve some angles using the tan ratio now. So we're asked to solve for angle x here. Relative to x, 13 is my opposite side and 19 is my adjacent side. So tan of angle x equals opposite over adjacent, which is 13 over 19. Okay, now what I would do, you can put that in your calculator. So 13 over 19. And just leave the answer there. So rounded to 4 decimal places, I get 6 or 0.6842. Now we want to take the tan inverse of both sides. So we get angle x is tan inverse of that ratio. Now if the number is still stored in your calculator, what you can do is press tan inverse and then press your answer button. So on my calculator, it's alpha equals to get to answer, but each of you will have a different way to do that. And it just makes sure you don't have rounding error because it's putting in the entire ratio instead of that decimal answer. You could also just write a whole bunch of decimal places if you want to. But you should get angle x, we're rounding to 1 decimal place, so 34.4 degrees. Okay, in B, we've got our opposite up here and adjacent over here. So tan of angle x is opposite over adjacent, which is 16.5 over 12. And so in decimal form, that is, and again, I would just leave this number on my calculator, but I get 1.375. So now if I want just angle x, I'm going to take the tan inverse. And so I get angle x is tan inverse of that number. So I do tan inverse of the answer, the previous answer in my calculator, and rounded to 1 decimal place, I get 54.0. I get an answer of like 53.97 something. So 54.0 degrees. Okay, C, we've got our opposite up here and adjacent down here. So tan of angle x is opposite over adjacent, which is 30 over 35. And that is 0.8571. 857 rounded to 4 decimal places. So I'm going to take the tan inverse of both sides. So I get angle x is the tan inverse of that ratio. And so I'll do tan inverse of the answer. And rounded to 1 decimal place, I get 40.6 degrees. And last one of this type. So 94 is our opposite side. 36 is our adjacent. So tan of angle x is 94 over 36. Which is 2.611. And so then my angle, I'm going to take the tan inverse of both sides. So it's going to be tan inverse of that number. And that gives me 69.0 degrees. Okay. In this next question, they ask us to find the missing angles and sides in this triangle. So we can start by finding angle B. We know that this is a right triangle, so angle A plus angle B add up to give us 90 degrees. Oops. Okay, degrees. And then we know that angle A is 72 degrees. So we can subtract 72 degrees from both sides and we get angle B is 90 degrees minus 72 degrees, which would give us 18 degrees. Okay, so we know angle B, and we still need to know little b and little c. So let's start. I always like to, when you can, use the information you've been given, just in case you have a problem later downstream of that. So I'm going to try to use the 72 degrees rather than the 18 degrees I just calculated where possible. So I'm going to consider that my target angle. If that's my target angle, this 14 is my opposite side and B is my adjacent. So tan of 72 degrees is opposite over adjacent, which is 14 over little b. So now we can rearrange to solve for b. So I'm going to multiply both sides by b. And so I get b times tan 72 degrees equals 14. And then I can divide both sides by tan 72. All right, and so that gives me b equals 14 over tan 72, which they haven't told us what to round to, so I'll round to the nearest tenth as 4.5. Okay, now I'm going to round my answer to 4.5, but let's write down our intermediate answer here out to a few more decimal places to use in downstream calculations. So this is 4.5488757. Or you can store that number on your calculator or just leave it there and use the previous answer button. Okay, last thing we want to do is find side length C. That's the last thing we don't know. And to do that, we can use Pythagorean theorem. So we know a squared plus b squared has to equal c squared because this is a right triangle. And so 14 squared plus this number I just found, so 4.54, and that's why I said use the whole thing, just so you don't end up with any rounding error. And that equals c squared. So on my calculator, I still have that 4.54 button or number stored, so I'm just going to square that and then add 14 squared to it. And so I get 216.69 2, and so on. Okay, now we want to square root both sides in order to solve for c. So we square root that answer and rounded to one decimal place, we get an answer of 14.7.